Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back to a time of gaslights, corsets, and some truly questionable medical advice. We're heading into the late 19th century, a world where a woman's mind was often seen as a delicate, fragile thing, prone to a peculiar illness if it was overstimulated with things like, thoughts, ambitions, or an opinion. You'll be stepping into the shoes of a woman from this era. And I have to warn you, your modern-day personality would likely get you diagnosed before you even finished your morning tea. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is what keeps this little corner of the internet going. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments what city you're in and what time it is for you right now. It's always a quiet thrill to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world outside your window is painted in shades of charcoal and grey, smudged by a persistent drizzle that slicks the cobblestones below. The clip-clop of a horse-drawn omnibus is a steady, rhythmic heartbeat against the quiet of your family espar. You are sitting in your favourite armchair, the one with the slightly worn velvet, a heavy book resting in your lap. The air smells of beeswax, old paper, and the faint, ever-present scent of coal smoke from the fireplace. It is, by all accounts, a peaceful afternoon. But peace is a complicated thing. For you, it's a thin blanket stretched over a restless sea of thoughts. The book in your hands is not the light-hearted romance your mother recommends, but a collection of essays on social reform. Its pages are filled with electrifying ideas about education, equality, and a woman's place in the world, a place far beyond the four walls of a drawing room. As you read, you feel a familiar spark ignite within you. The craving for, no, more than embroidery, more than polite conversation about the weather, more than the carefully curated path leading to a suitable marriage. You sigh, closing the book but keeping your finger in place. Your gaze drifts around the room. It's a beautiful prison, if you're being honest with yourself. The heavy damask curtains, the ornate mahogany furniture, the porcelain figurines on the mantelpiece, they are all symbols of your family's status, but they feel like the gilded bars of a cage. This was the era of the angel in the house, a popular ideal of the perfect wife, devoted, submissive, and utterly domestic. You, however, have always felt more like a restless ghost in the machine. You fantasize about things that would make your heart faint. You imagine walking through the city alone, unchaperoned, just to see where the streets lead. You've even secretly read newspaper articles about the so-called new woman. These bold figures who are fighting to attend universities, enter professions, and, most scandalously, ride bicycles. The thought of a bicycle, of the wind in your hair and the freedom of your own momentum, is so deliciously rebellious it makes you smile. This desire for simple autonomy, for control over your own body and path, is a deep and persistent hum beneath the surface of your quiet life. But you are smart enough to know that such thoughts are dangerous. A woman with too many ideas, too much passion, is not seen as intelligent or ambitious. She is seen as unwell. Her nerves are delicate. Her constitution is weak. You've heard the whispers, the hushed conversations about other women in your social circle who were too loud, too melancholic, or too clever, and were subsequently sent away for rest. You shift in your chair. The stiff bone of your corset digging into your ribs a constant physical reminder of the constraints placed upon you. You look down at your hands, imagining them holding not a needle, but a pen, writing down the torrent of ideas that flood your mind, or perhaps holding a doctor's scalpel or an artist's brush. This yearning is a physical ache. It's a form of energy with nowhere to go, and it sometimes leaves you feeling agitated, frustrated, and deeply, profoundly tired. You wonder about the doctors who treat these nervous women. Are they truly convinced that a woman's ambition is a medical symptom, or is it simply more convenient for everyone if a woman, who doesn't fit the mold is labeled as sick rather than revolutionary historians. Even now, are in a quiet debate over this very point: was this a conscious effort to control and punish nonconformity, or the tragic result of a medical field that fundamentally misunderstood half the population? You don't have the answer. You only know that when your father looks at the serious book in your lap, his brow furrows with a concern that feels less like pride and more like worry. The spark inside you feels less like a gift and more like a liability, and you have a sinking feeling that your peaceful afternoon is about to come to an end. Your father clears his throat with soft, rumbling sound that cuts through the quiet of the parlor. You look up from your book, your heart giving a little flutter of apprehension. H.E.S. standing by the mantelpiece, pretending to adjust a porcelain shepherdess, but his gaze is fixed on the serious title of your book. Is that not? He begins, his voice laced with a gentle, almost clinical concern, and little taxing for you. My dear, perhaps some poetry would be more restful. He doesn't understand. To him, your mind is a delicate instrument that can be strained by complex thoughts, like a fine watch over wound. The suggestion isn't a command, but it hangs in the air with the weight of one. You offer a small, tight smile and close the book completely. Perhaps you're right, Father. The lie tastes like ash in your mouth. Restful is the last thing you want to be. This is the very essence of your world, the Gilded Age. It's a cage. Yes, but a stunningly beautiful one. Every surface gleams with polish and prosperity. The gas lamps cast a warm, golden glow in the evenings, making everything look softer. Richer. Your dresses are made of fine silks and heavy velvets, rustling with an expensive whisper as you move. On the surface, your life is one of enviable ease. You have no chores, no true responsibilities beyond being pleasant and presentable. Your hands are soft, careless, meant for little more than holding a teacup or a needle. You are, for all intents and purposes, the family's most precious and well-kept ornament. But ornaments are not meant to have opinions. They are meant to be admired in their proper place. Your proper place is the domestic sphere, a world entirely separate from the public life of men. Your brother gets to discuss politics, business, and the wider world with your father over cigars after dinner. You and your mother are expected to retreat to the drawing room to discuss. Well, to discuss other drawing room. You talk of fabric patterns, upcoming weddings, and the minor scandals of your neighbors, all in hushed, polite tones. Your mind, which yearns to debate the as in your forbidden books, feels like a greyhound forced to walk in circles inside a tiny, manicured garden. Even the simplest social interactions are governed by a dizzying set of unspoken rules. Take, for instance, the ritual of calling. You have a small, elegant case for your calling cards. Little rectangles of pasteboard engraved with your name. A visit to a friend or acquaintance involves a complex dance. You don't just knock. Your footman would present your card to the servant at the door. If the lady of the house was not at home, which could mean anything from genuinely out to simply not wishing to see you, your card would be left on a silver tray in the hall. The corner of the card might be folded to signify different things, a secret language of pasteboard. It's a system designed to maintain social order, but to you, it feels like another layer of performance. Another way your authentic self is replaced by a piece of paper and a set of rigid expectations. Historians still argue about how women of your time truly felt about this. Were they all silent sufferers, yearning for freedom, or did many women find a sense of security, purpose, and even a unique form of power in mastering this domestic world? It's likely the truth is a messy blend of both. You see it in your own mother. She navigates the complex social landscape with the skill of a master strategist. Her drawing room a subtle battlefield of influence and reputation. She seems perfectly content, even proud of her role. But sometimes, when she thinks no one is looking, you see the same flicker of exhaustion in her eyes that you feel in your own soul. Tonight, at dinner, the cage feels particularly small. A business associate of your father's is visiting. A loud, portly man who speaks only to the men at the table. You and your mother are expected to be silent, attentive decorations. At one point, the conversation turns to the deplorable state of the city's poor. Without thinking, you voice an idea. You read about a proposal for establishing public libraries in working-class neighborhoods. Silence falls over the table, not a hostile silence, but something far worse, a surprised, slightly amused silence. The visitor gives you a patronizing smile. A very charitable thought. "My dear," he says, before turning back to your father to continue his discussion of railway bonds. Your father gives you a look. It's a look that says, "This is not your sphere." You feel a hot blush creep up your neck, a mix of embarrassment and fury. You have been gently, but firmly, put back in your box. The rest of the meal, you are silent. You are the perfect ornament once more. But inside, the greyhound is clawing at the garden fence, desperate for a chance to run. The man who will inadvertently provide the scientific justification for your gilded cage is named Dr. Silas Weir Mitchell. You haven't met him, but his name is spoken with reverence in parlors like yours. He is a physician, a novelist, a man of science and letters from Philadelphia. And he has become the foremost authority on a condition that seems to be plaguing the women of your class: nervous exhaustion, or neurasthenia. Dr. Mitchell is, by the standards of his day, a brilliant and compassionate man. He served as a surgeon during the Civil War, treating men with shattered nerves and phantom limb pain. He saw firsthand how trauma could break a man's mind as surely as a bullet could break his bones. From these experiences, he developed theories about the body's nerve force, envisioning it as a finite resource, a sort of biological bank account. For the war-torn soldiers, he prescribed rest, horse and food, and massage to help them replenish their depleted accounts, and it often worked. But when he turned his attention from the battlefield to the drawing room, his perspective shifted in a way that would have profound consequences for women like you. He saw the ambitious, intellectual, and creatively frustrated women of the upper classes not as individuals stifled by their environment, but as patients whose delicate female systems were simply not designed for the rigors of thought. In his view, a woman's body was a closed system, and the energy required for menstruation and reproduction was immense. Therefore, any energy spent on higher education, professional ambition, or intense artistic creation was a dangerous overdraft, stealing vital resources from her primary biological purpose, being a wife and mother. His theory is elegant, simple, and catastrophically wrong. He famously wrote that a woman's brain and her ovaries could not develop at the same time. He believed that the very act of thinking drew blood away from the uterus, leading to all manner of ailments. The ails he attributes to this overdraft are maddeningly vague: fatigue, anxiety, headaches, loss of appetite, a general sense of unease. In short, the very feelings you experience when your spirit chafes against the bars of your cage. Dr. Mitchell has created a medical diagnosis for female discontent. His ideas are wildly popular because they provide a comforting, scientific-sounding explanation for a social problem. It is much easier for a husband or father to believe his wife or daughter is suffering from a medical condition called neurasthenia than to accept that she is profoundly, legitimately unhappy with the life he provides for her. It transforms a social critique into a personal failing, a sickness of the nerves. One of his most famous innovations, one you've heard whispered about, is his rest cure. It is designed specifically for women. For men suffering from the same symptoms of nervousness often brought on by the immense pressures of the business world, his prescription was entirely different. He called it the West Cure. He would send these men out to the rugged American West for months of cattle roping, hunting, and rough, physical living. For men, the cure for nervous exhaustion was activity, challenge, and adventure. For women, it was the exact opposite. This stark difference is something historians still dissect with a kind of baffled fascination. While the polar opposite treatments, the consensus is that it was deeply rooted in Victorian ideals of gender. The ideal man was active, robust, and engaged with the world. The West cure was designed to restore him to this ideal. The ideal woman was passive, domestic, and serene. The rest cure was designed to force her into that mold. It wasn't just about replenishing nerve force, it was about social engineering, using medicine as a tool to reinforce conformity. A fascinating, and frankly bizarre, tidbit about Drive Mitchell is that despite his restrictive views on women's intellectual lives, he himself was a writer. He penned popular historical novels and poetry. He saw no contradiction in pursuing his own creative passions while actively prescribing their suppression in his female patients. It's an irony so sharp it could cut glass. You, of course, know nothing of this hypocrisy. You only know of his reputation as a miracle worker, the man who can cure women who are too much like you. And his name is beginning to be mentioned more and more often by your concerned mother in conversation with your father. Always in a low, worried murmur. The name Dr. Mitchell is no longer just a whisper. It has become a presence in your home. A heavy, invisible guest at the dinner table. It is invoked by your mother whenever you seem particularly quiet or tired. Don't. I do worry about her nerves, she'll say to your father, casting a sideways glance at you. Dr. Weir Mitchell has had success with cases like this. Your case. You have become a case. The breaking point arrives on a Tuesday. It's a day like any other. Grey and muted. The air thick with the promise of more rain. Your mother summons you to the morning room. A space meant for light, feminine tasks, filled with floral chintz and delicate watercolors. She is embroidering a pillowcase, her needle moving with a frantic, agitated rhythm. She doesn't look at you as she speaks. Mr. Abernathy's mother paid me a call yesterday. She begins, her voice unnaturally bright. It seems dear Arthur is quite taken with you. He has spoken to his father, who will be speaking to your father. The news lands in the pit of your stomach like a cold stone. Arthur Abernathy, a perfectly suitable man. He is kind. He is wealthy. He has a respectable chin and a predictable laugh. To marry him would be to secure your future, to fulfill your purpose, to do exactly what is expected of you. The thought is so suffocating you feel the air leave your lungs. Your life unspools before your eyes, a succession of identical days in a house much like this one, overseeing servants, hosting dinners, and producing heirs. A slow, quiet death of the spirit. No, you say. The word is quiet, but it hangs in the air with the force of a shout. Your mother's needle stops. She finally looks at you, her eyes wide with alarm. No, what do you mean? No, it is a wonderful match. I do not wish to marry Mr. Abernathy, you say, your voice gaining a strength you didn't know it had. I do not wish to marry anyone. I want to do something. To be something. Do something, she echoes, bewildered. You will be Mrs. Arthur Abernathy. You will be the mistress of a fine house. That is not a being. You counter. The words tumbling out now. A torrent of long-suppressed frustration. That is a title. A role. I want to go to university. I want to write. I want to know what's happening in the world from a book, not from a visitor's polite gossip. I want a life of the mind. It is this last phrase that does it. A life of the mind. To your mother. It sounds like a death sentence. Her face pales. She sees you not as a passionate young woman articulating her dreams, but as a sick patient in the grip of a fever. Your ambition is a symptom. Your desire is a pathology. You are overexcited, she says, her voice trembling. Your nerves are getting the better of you. This is not healthy talk. She rushes to a small cabinet and returns with a little brown bottle and a spoon. It's a bromide tonic, a common household remedy for anxiety in Switzerland. Essentially, a liquid sedative. The casualness with which it's offered is chilling. Female emotion is not something to be understood, but something to be medicated, to be dampened down. You push the spoon away, a gesture of defiance that horrifies her. You stand up, your heart hammering against your ribs, and for a moment, You are so overwhelmed with a mix of fury and despair that you cannot speak. You just stand there, silent and trembling, your fists clenched at your sides. You don't scream. You don't cry. You simply shut down. This, to them, is the most terrifying symptom of all. It is an unladylike intensity, a visible sign that the placid, ornamental surface is cracked. That evening, your father calls you into his study. He is not angry. He is worse. He is profoundly, sorrowfully concerned. He tells you he has seen this agitation growing in you for months. He says your rejection of a fine suitor, your talk of universities, and your emotional state are clear signs that you are not well. Your body and mind, he explains patiently, as if to a child, are out of balance. It's a strange and complex position to be in. Some historians argue that for certain Victorian women, the diagnosis of an invalid was a double-edged sword. While it stripped them of their autonomy, it was also one of the very few socially acceptable ways to opt out of undesirable duties. From tedious social calls to the physical demands of marriage, was it possible, some scholars ask, that on some subconscious level, women leaned into the diagnosis as a form of passive resistance, standing there in your father's study? You feel a fleeting, shameful flicker of that thought. If being sick is the only way to avoid marrying Arthur Abernathy, is it a price worth paying? The thought evaporates as quickly as it came. You don't want a different cage, you want no cage at all. Your father's voice is gentle, but his decision is final. We are going to take you to Philadelphia, he says. We have an appointment to see Drive, Weir Mitchell. He will know how to help you. He will make you well again. The sentence is delivered with such loving finality. They are not punishing you. They are saving you, and you have no power to refuse. The train journey to Philadelphia is a blur of rattling windows and landscapes smudged by speed. You sit beside your mother, who clutches her handbag like a shield, her expression a careful mixture of concern and resolve. The world outside seems vibrant and full of purpose. You see farmers in their fields, factory workers heading home, men reading newspapers and bustling station platforms. Everyone is in motion, a part of the world's machinery. You, on the other hand, are being transported like a fragile piece of cargo, a problem to be delivered and solved. In your handbag, you have a small, leather-bound diary. Your father doesn't know about it. In its pages, you have written not just your daily activities, but your thoughts, your frustrations, your secret ambitions. It's the only place you can be yourself. The night before you left, you stayed up late, the candlelight flickering, and wrote about your conversation with your father. You tried to articulate why his loving concern felt more oppressive than anger. You described the feeling of being misunderstood not as a person, but as a faulty mechanism. Your destination, you eventually learned, is not just Mitchell's main office, but a private nursing home he oversees, a place designed specifically for the implementation of his famous cure. The carriage ride from the station takes you to a quiet, tree-lined street with large, respectable-looking brick houses. There is nothing to suggest it is a medical facility. It looks like any other prosperous family home, but you know that behind one of those doors, a room is being prepared for you. When you are finally shown into Drive, Mitchell's consulting room, you are struck by how ordinary it seems. It's a handsome office, lined with books from floor to ceiling. He is older than you imagined, with a neatly trimmed beard and kind, intelligent eyes that seem to see right through you. He asks your parents to wait outside, a gesture that gives you a brief, flickering hope that he wants to hear your side of the story. He begins by asking you a series of gentle questions about your health. Do you sleep well? Is your appetite sound? Do you suffer from headaches? You answer honestly. Your sleep is often restless. Your appetite comes and goes. Yes, sometimes you have headaches. He nods, as if you are confirming a pre-written checklist. Then, he asks about your interests. You tell him you enjoy reading. He smiles. And what do you read? He asks. When you mention the essays on social reform, His smile tightens almost imperceptibly. He asks about your desire to attend university. As you speak, trying to convey the passion and intellectual curiosity that drives you, you see a look cross his face. It is not dismissal. It is a look of clinical diagnosis. He is not hearing your dreams, he is cataloguing your symptoms. At the end of your short conversation, he leans back in his chair. Your case, he says, his voice calm and authoritative, is a classic one. You have a textbook case of hysteria. The word hangs in the air, heavy and suffocating. Hysteria. It's a word with a long and frankly bizarre history. A fact you're vaguely aware of from your reading. The ancient Greeks believed the condition was caused by a wandering womb. The Greek word hysteria means uterus, which they imagined would travel around a woman's body, causing all manner of emotional and physical distress. The proposed cures back then were just as strange, ranging from holding foul-smelling salts under a woman's nose to encourage the womb to flee back to its proper place, to using pleasant-smelling perfumes to lure it downwards. It was a diagnosis rooted in the idea that a woman's entire being, her health, her emotions, her sanity was held hostage by her reproductive organs. Of course, by your time, the wandering womb theory has been largely discarded by the medical establishment. Or has it? The term hysteria has survived, evolving into a convenient, catch-all diagnosis for almost any female behavior that deviated from the quiet, submissive norm. Anxiety, depression, anger, frustration, intellectual ambition, lack of sexual desire, too much sexual desire, it could all be bundled under the tidy, dismissive label of hysteria. Historians today still grapple with the sheer scope of this diagnosis. Was it a genuine, albeit misguided, attempt to understand a complex set of symptoms we might now label as depression or anxiety disorders, or was it, plain and simple, a tool of social control? The consensus leans heavily towards the latter. Hysteria became the medical justification for policing female behavior. It allowed a patriarchal society to take a woman's legitimate emotional responses to her restrictive life and rebrand them as evidence of a personal, biological failing. Your desire for knowledge isn't a sign of intelligence, it's a symptom. Your frustration isn't a rational response to confinement, it's an illness. Dr. Mitchell looks at you with what he clearly believes is benevolent compassion. He sees a sick girl in need of his help. You see a man who has taken the very essence of who you are, your passion, your intelligence, your yearning for a bigger life, and written it down on a piece of paper as a disease. He has given your spirit a sickness, and he is about to prescribe the cure. We have had great success with cases such as yours. Dr. Mitchell continues, his voice soothing and confident. He pulls a sheet of paper from a drawer and dips his pen in ink. The scratching of the nib on the paper is the only sound in the room. He is not just a doctor, he is a respected man of letters. And you are his mute, unwilling subject. He looks up at you over the rim of his spectacles, his expression one of paternal authority. The treatment I'm prescribing will restore the balance to your system. It will replenish your nerve force and calm the agitation that troubles you. He seems to genuinely believe this. You are not a prisoner, but a patient. This is not a punishment, but a cure. He explains the regimen to you, point by point, as if you were outlining a pleasant holiday. He calls it the rest cure, but every element he describes sounds like a form of erasua. First, there will be a period of absolute isolation. 6 to 8 weeks, he estimates. You will not be permitted to see your family or friends. You are not to receive any letters, nor are you to send any. The mind must be completely untroubled by external affections and anxieties. He explains. He is severing every tie to your former life. To the people who know you as you will be a blank slate. Second, you will be confined to bed, not just for a few hours a day, but for the entire duration of the treatment. You are not to sit up. You are not to stand. You are not to walk to the window. You must remain horizontal at all times. The body must devote all of its energy to healing, not to needless exertion, he says. The image flashes in your mind of the greyhound in the garden, no longer just confined, but now chained to the ground. Third, and this is the part that makes your blood run cold, you are to abandon all intellectual and creative activity. No reading, no writing, no sketching. You are not even to be read to, except perhaps for 15 minutes a day, and then only something light and unstimulating. He specifically forbids you from touching a pen or pencil. The brain is the most exhausted organ. He explains patiently. It must be allowed to lie fallow, to recover its strength. Your mind, the very part of you that you cherish most, is to be stole. Your diary, hidden in your handbag, suddenly feels like a contraband item, a piece of evidence of your sickness. Historians have long debated the true purpose of this sensory and intellectual deprivation. Was Mitchell's primary goal truly to rest the brain, or was he, consciously or not, inducing a state of mild sensory deprivation? Modern science understands that when the brain is starved of stimulus, it can become more suggestible, more malleable. The days of boredom, the lack of mental landmarks, the sheer monotony, it's a process designed to break down a person's intellectual resistance, to make them more docile and accepting of the doctor's authority. The cure works not by healing the brain, but by breaking the will. As he speaks, you look around his office, at the thousands of books lining the walls. The irony is suffocating. He, a man celebrated for his intellect and his writings, is prescribing for you a life without either. He is a gatekeeper, standing at the door of the world of ideas, and he is telling you that you are not welcome inside. It's a particularly cruel twist of the knife, a little-known fact that he was a prolific novelist himself. While you are to be forbidden from even holding a book, he will likely go home this evening and work on his next chapter. He summons your parents back into the room. He explains the prescription to them, and you watch as relief floods their faces. Here, at last, is a plan, a scientific, medical solution. They look at Dr. Mitchell with something approaching worship. He is the expert, the man who will fix their broken daughter. They look at you with a new kind of pity, the look one gives to someone who is too sick to know what's good for them. Your protests, if you were to make them, would be dismissed as just another symptom of the hysteria he is aiming to cure. You are trapped in a perfect circle of logic. Any resistance to the cure is simply further proof that you need it. He hands the prescription to your father. It is not a list of medicines, but a set of instructions, a blueprint for how to deconstruct a person. As you stand to leave, Dr. Mitchell places a hand gently on your shoulder. In a few months, my dear, he says with a kind smile, you will be your old self again. The chilling part is, you know he's wrong. If his treatment is successful, you will never be yourself again. You will be his version of you. The prescription is not just a piece of paper, it's a verdict. Your fate is sealed in the elegant loops of Dr. Mitchell's handwriting. As you leave his office, you feel a profound sense of detachment, as if you were watching a play about someone else's life. Your parents' relief is a palpable thing, a warm cloud of gratitude that surrounds them. They thank the doctor profusely. Their voice is filled with the reverence one usually reserves for a clergyman. They believe they have found salvation for their troubled daughter. You know you have just been handed a sentence. The rest cure is a masterpiece of psychological control, disguised as medical care. The instructions are meticulous, leaving no room for ambiguity or interpretation. They are to be followed to the letter by a specially trained nurse, a woman who will become your warden, your feeder, and your sole human contact. The first point on the prescription is the absolute, unyielding bed rest. You are to be treated like an infant, utterly dependent on the care of others. This is not the gentle, recuperative rest you might take on a sofa after a long day. This is a rigorous, enforced stillness. You will eat, wash, and perform all bodily functions while lying down. The physical atrophy is part of the point. A body weakened by disuse is less likely to house a rebellious spirit. It's a strategy of containment, shrinking your physical world down to the dimensions of a mattress. The second point is the isolation. Complete and total. No tearful goodbyes with your mother. No last-minute words of encouragement from your father. Once you enter the designated room, the door closes on your old life. Dr. Mitchell's rationale is that emotional attachments stir the brain and deplete the precious nerve force. He believes that by cutting you off from your loved ones, he is protecting you from harmful stimulation. In reality, he is removing your support system, the very people who might question the severity of the treatment or feel sympathy for your plight. In isolation, you are more vulnerable, more completely under the control of the doctor and his nurse. The third point, the one that feels like a personal attack, is the intellectual starvation. The brain must be put to bed. Just like the body, the prescription reads, no books, no letters, no pencils, no paper. This is the cornerstone of the cure. Your mind, which he has identified as the source of the problem, must be silenced. It's a stunningly direct assault on your identity. You are not just a person with a restless mind. Your restless mind is the sickness. To cure you, he must first dismantle the core of who you are. And then there is the fourth, and perhaps most crucial, element of the prescription, the diet. This is the engine of the rest cure. The tool that will physically reshape you into a more docile creature. You are to be fed a high-fat, high-calorie diet, designed to make you gain a significant amount of weight. The prescription is specific to quarts of milk a day, plus a light breakfast, a heavier midday meal, and a substantial supper. He often supplemented this with raw beef soup, mugs of liquid malt, and other calorie-dense concoctions. This forced feeding is where the cure reveals its true, almost surreal nature. Dr. Mitchell had a theory that he called the moral effect of fatness. He genuinely believed that increasing a woman's body fat would calm her nerves and make her more passive. In his writings, he observed that fat and blood were the enemies of nervousness. He equated thinness with anxiety and excitability, and promptness with serenity and docility. He was, in essence, trying to pacify your mind by padding your body. It is a concept so bizarre, so profoundly physical in its approach to a psychological issue, that it borders on the absurd. Historians still debate the precise origins of this fat and blood theory. Was it a misguided observation from his clinical practice, or was it a reflection of the Victorian aesthetic ideal, where a certain plumpness was seen as a sign of health, prosperity, and a gentle, non-threatening femininity? A thin, angular woman might appear more intellectual or intense, while a soft, rounded one fit more comfortably into the domestic ideal. By fattening you up, he was physically molding you into the Victorian ideal of womanhood. The prescription is a closed system, a perfect trap. Any protest you might make will be interpreted as a symptom. If you refuse the food, it's a sign of hysterical loss of appetite. If you cry, it's an emotional outburst proving your instability. If you argue logically, you're demonstrating the overactive brain he is trying to quiet. There is no way to win. The rules of the game have been written by your opponent, and the game is designed for you to lose. You are not a participant in your own healing. You are the raw material upon which the cure will be enacted. As your parents led you towards the nursing home, the prescription tucked safely in your father's coat pocket, you feel the last vestiges of your own agency slipping away. You are led up a quiet staircase to the second floor of the handsome brick house. Your mother gives your hand a final, tremulous squeeze at the doorway, her eyes brimming with tears and a desperate kind of hope. Your father nods curtly, a man trying to maintain his composure in the face of a medical necessity. Then, they are gone. A nurse, a woman with a starched white apron and a face that is neither kind nor unkind, but simply neutral, closes the door. The click of the latch is a soft, final sound. It echoes in the sudden, profound silence of the room. This is your new world, your white room. It is not overtly unpleasant. In fact, it has been designed to be as calming and unstimulating as possible. The walls are painted a pale, milky white. There is one window, but the view is of a brick wall. A deliberate choice to prevent your mind from wandering with the sight of passing clouds or swaying trees. The furniture is sparse and functional: a simple iron-frame bed, a small bedside table, a wardrobe, and a single, Hardback chair for the nurse. There are no pictures on the walls, no patterns on the curtains, no books on the shelves. The room is a sensory vacuum. It feels clean, sterile, and utterly devoid of personality. It is the architectural equivalent of a blank page. A space scrubbed clean of any potential for thought or inspiration. The bed is neatly made. The white sheets pulled taut. The pillows plump. It looks less like a place of rest and more like an altar for a strange medical ritual. You are the sacrifice. The nurse, whose name you learn is Nurse Mills, gestures towards the bed. The doctor's instructions are for you to get undressed and into bed immediately, she says. Her voice is starched as her apron. There is no room for negotiation in her tone. You slowly unbutton your traveling dress, the familiar fabrics feeling alien in this new context. You fold your clothes, the last remnants of your former self, and watch as Nurse Mills places them neatly inside the wardrobe. She hands you a simple, shapeless cotton nightgown. It smells of lice open disuse. As you lie down in the bed, the mattress firm beneath you, you are struck by the sheer totality of your confinement. You are not just in a room, you are in a bed. In a room, in a house, in a city you do not know. The layers of containment are absolute. The world has been shrunk down to the size of a white sheet. This practice of isolating patients was not unique to Mitchell, but he perfected it for his female hysterics. The room itself was a therapeutic tool. He wrote extensively about the importance of removing the patient from their unhealthy home environment, which he believed was often filled with injudicious and unwholesome sympathy. He saw the love and concern of a family not as a comfort, but as an indulgence that fed the patient's illness. By placing you in this sterile environment, under the care of a dispassionate professional, he believed he was creating a controlled laboratory for your recovery. The irony, of course, is that for many women like you, the unhealthy environment was the very source of their distress. It was the stifling expectations of family, the lack of intellectual freedom, the gilded cage of home. To be removed from it should have been a relief, but Mitchell replaced one prison with another, one that was smaller, quieter, and infinitely more controlling. Historians often draw a parallel between these rest cure rooms and monastic cells or even prison cells. The question of intent is, as always, complex. Was this designed as a punitive space, a form of soft punishment for non-conforming women, or was it a genuinely held, if deeply flawed, belief that sensory deprivation would lead to mental peace? The truth is likely somewhere in the murky middle. The result, however, was the same. The White Room was a place where a woman's identity was systematically dismantled. You lie back against the pillows, the starched cotton of the nightgown rough against your skin. You stare up at the ceiling. It is a vast, empty expanse of white. You can see the faint, almost invisible lines where the plaster was smooth. You try to find patterns in the imperfections. A crack that looks like a river, a smudge that resembles a cloud. Your mind, starved of input, immediately begins to create its own. This is precisely what you are not supposed to do. You are supposed to be empty, placid, still. You close your eyes, but the image of the white ceiling is burned onto the back of your eyelids. The cure has begun. The silence presses in on you, thick and heavy like a blanket, and you realize, with a sudden, cold dread, that the loudest sound in this room is going to be the sound of your own thoughts. The first day is a masterclass in the tyranny of doing nothing. Time, untethered from its usual anchors of meals with family, walks in the garden, or the turning of a page, becomes a thick, slow-moving river of sludge. You wake up not knowing if it's early morning or midday. The light in the room is a diffuse, turquoise grey. There is no sunbeam on the floor to mark the passing hours. Nurse Mills enters, her movements efficient and silent. She takes your temperature, checks your pulse, and makes a note in a small, leather-bound ledger. She is the scientist, you are the experiment. She doesn't speak to you beyond issuing simple, direct commands. Lie on your left side. Drink this. Her detachment is absolute. A professional wall you cannot breach. It's a key part of the treatment. Mitchell instructed his nurses to be firm but kind, and to avoid engaging in any conversation that might excite the patient's mind. She is not here to be your friend, she is here to enforce the cure. She brings your breakfast on a tray. It's a bowl of porridge, thick and bland, and a tall glass of milk. You are not allowed to sit up to eat it. You must lie on your side while Nurse Mills feeds you, spoonful by spoonful, as if you were an infant. The act is profoundly infantilizing, a physical manifestation of your complete loss of agency. You are a body to be tended to, not a person to be engaged with. The simple act of feeding yourself, something you have done since you were a toddler, is now a forbidden activity. After the meal, the great, empty expanse of the day stretches out before you. You lie on your back and stare at the white ceiling. You trace the cracks in the plaster with your eyes until you have memorized them. You count your own heartbeats. You listen to the faint, distant sounds of the street a horse's whinny, the rumble of a cart's wheels, and they feel like sounds from another world. The boredom is not just a passive feeling, it is an active, aggressive force. It presses in on you, a physical weight. Your mind, accustomed to a constant stream of input from books and conversations, screams for stimulation. It is like a muscle, suddenly forbidden to move, that begins to ache and cramp. You try to recite poetry you know by heart, but you find the words slipping away. You try to work through mathematical problems in your head, but your focus dissolves. The enforced idleness makes concentration impossible. This is, of course, the intended effect. Dr. Mitchell believed that any form of structured thought was work for the brain and therefore harmful. What he likely didn't realize, or perhaps didn't care about, was that this level of inactivity is a form of psychological torture. There's a curious piece of historical trivia that underscores the gendered nature of this belief at the same time. The thought force movement was gaining popularity, particularly among ambitious men. It was a philosophy that preached the power of focused mental energy to achieve success in business and life. For men, intense thought was a creative force for you. It is a disease. You find your thoughts turning inward in a chaotic, unstructured way. You remember trivial things with startling clarity, the specific pattern of lace on your mother's sleeve, the taste of strawberries on a summer afternoon years ago, a snatch of a song you heard a vendor singing in the street. Your memories drift and eddy without purpose, a jumble of disconnected images. Is this what it means for the brain to life? Although it doesn't feel restful, it feels like madness. Historians and psychologists who study the rest cure often point to this enforced idleness as its most psychologically damaging component. It creates a state of learned helplessness. When you are forbidden from doing anything for yourself, you eventually forget how. Your will road. The desire to act, to think, to create, begins to feel like a pointless, exhausting struggle. Docility is not a cure, it is a conditioned response. The academic debate continues: was this erosion of will a deliberate goal of the therapy, or an unforeseen and tragic side effect of a well-intentioned but fundamentally flawed theory? Looking at the blank white walls, you can't help but feel it is deliberate. Late in the afternoon, you hear the faint sound of a child laughing in a neighboring yard. The sound is so full of life, so spontaneous and free, that it brings tears to your eyes. It is everything you are not. You turn your face into the pillow so Nurse Mills won't see. The tears are silent, a small, secret rebellion, but even this feels like a failure. Dr. Mitchell would see your tears not as a sign of grief for your lost freedom, but as another symptom of your hysterical condition. The tyranny of the cure is that it reinterprets every natural human response as evidence of illness. The day ends as it began, with a glass of milk and the slow, suffocating descent of an endless silence. On the second day, the true engine of the cure is brought to the forefront. It arrives not with a dramatic flourish, but on a simple tray, carried in by Nurse Mills. Alongside your bland breakfast, there is a large, imposing pitcher filled with milk. It looks thick, creamy, and intimidatingly voluminous. This, you realize, is the 2 quarts a day that Dr. Mitchell prescribed. You are to drink a glass of milk every 2 hours. Nurse Mills announces, her voice flattened matter of fact. She pours a tall glass and places it on the bedside table. It is essential for building up your blood and your strength. Strength. The word seems like a cruel joke. The regimen is designed to make you physically weak from disuse. Yet you are being force-fed to build you up. It's a contradiction that makes your head spin. But you are beginning to understand. It is not the strength of muscle and bone they are interested in. It is the strength of flesh. The moral effect of fatness that Dr. Mitchell so prized. The milk itself is just the beginning. The diet is a relentless, calculated assault of calories. The light breakfast is followed by a heavier midday meal. This might be a thick mutton chop, glistening with fat, served with potatoes swimming in butter, or a slice of beef, rare and bloody, which you are expected to consume while lying on your side. Then comes the substantial supper, often a repeat of the midday meal, perhaps with a side of thick, gravy-soaked bread. In between these meals, the milk ritual continues with relentless punctuality. Every 2 hours, Nurse Mills appears with a full glass. Sometimes, for variation, she brings a frothy mug of what she calls immerse. It's a fermented milk beverage, originally from the steppes of Central Asia, where it was made from mare's milk. This was a trendy health food in the Victorian era, touted for its supposed digestive and restorative properties. It's an interesting bit of trivia, this exotic, nomadic staple, repurposed for the drawing rooms of Philadelphia to pacify nervous women. It tastes sour and yeasty, and you have to choke it down under the nurse's watchful eye. The goal is explicit weight gain, rapid and significant. Dr. Mitchell meticulously documented the weight of his patients, celebrating every added pound as a victory. He aimed for gains of 50, 60, or even more pounds over the course of the treatment. He was, in effect, running a reverse weight loss clinic. In his case files, he wrote with pride of pale, flabby women who became comely and strong under his care. His definition of comely was, it seems, almost entirely based on mass. This focus on diet as a tool for psychological manipulation is one of the most debated aspects of the rest cure. Modern medicine understands the complex link between diet and mental health. But Mitchell's approach was shockingly simplistic. He wasn't interested in nutrition in the modern sense, he was interested in bulk. Some historians argue that this was tied to class. In an age before processed food made calories cheap and abundant, being thin was often associated with poverty and illness like tuberculosis. A plump figure was a visible sign of wealth and leisure. By making his upper-class female patients plumper, he was physically reinforcing their status as leisured, non-working women, pushing them further away from the unfeminine world of work and intellect. You are not hungry. The sheer boredom and lack of movement have suppressed your appetite completely. The sight of the greasy mutton chop makes your stomach turn. But you have to eat. Refusal is not an option. If you hesitate, Nurse Mills will coax you with a firm. The doctor insists. If you refuse outright, you know what the next step would be. Mitchell was not above using feeding tubes for uncooperative patients. The threat is unspoken, but it hangs in the air. So you eat. You chew the tough meat. You swallow the butter-soaked potatoes. You drink the endless glasses of milk. Each mouthful feels like a betrayal of yourself. You are actively participating in the construction of your own prison. You can feel your body changing. A subtle shift in the way the nightgown fits. A new softness around your waist and hips. It's a slow, creeping invasion. You are being padded, insulated, weighted down. The food is not nourishment. It is ballast, designed to keep your high-flying mind tethered to the heavy, placid earth. Every spoonful is a nail in the coffin of the woman you used to be. The woman who read books about social reform and dreamed of riding a bicycle. She is being buried, 1 calorie at a time. The humiliation of being fed was a passive indignity, but today, The cure introduces a new, more active form of helplessness. Nurse Mills informs you that, as per Weir Mitchell's instructions, you are no longer permitted to use your own hands for any task, no matter how small. It starts in the morning with the simple act of washing your face. Instead of handing you the washcloth, she performs the task herself, her touch impersonal and deficient. She brushes your teeth for you, her movements brisk and practiced. She runs a comb through your hair, pulling out the tangles with a detached professionalism. You are a doll, a mannequin to be groomed and maintained. Your own hands lie limp and useless at your sides, resting on the white sheet. The prohibition extends to everything. When the mail arrives, not for you, of course, but a filtered, censored summary read aloud by the nurse, you are not allowed to hold the single sheet of paper. When a fly lands on your arm, your instinct is to shoo it away, but you must wait for the nurse to notice and brush it off for you. Your hands, which once held pens and turned the pages of challenging books, are now forbidden instruments. They are put on a forced holiday, rendered obsolete. This deliberate stripping away of basic motor functions is a core, and often overlooked, element of the rest cure's psychological power. Dr. Mitchell's rationale was that even the smallest physical action consumed nerve force that was needed for healing. By rendering the patient completely passive, he believed he was maximizing the body's restorative potential. But the psychological effect is far more profound. Our hands are our primary tools for interacting with the world. They are how we assert our agency, from the simple act of lifting a cup to our lips to the complex art of writing our thoughts. To be denied the use of your hands is to be severed from your own ability to act. It's a powerful and disturbing form of induced helplessness. You are not just being told you are helpless, your body is being trained to experience helplessness as a physical reality. The most degrading part of this new rule comes at mealtime. Being fed by the nurse was one thing. Now, she informs you, she will also cut your food. You watch as she takes the knife and fork to the slice of beef on your plate, methodically sawing it into small, bite-sized pieces, the kind one would prepare for a very young child. The sight is so surreal, so utterly absurd, that you almost want to laugh. But the sound catches in your throat. This isn't just about conserving energy. This is a ritual of infantilization, a ceremony designed to strip you of your adult status. There is a fascinating, if unsettling, parallel here that historians have noted in some Victorian-era guides for asylum attendants. Similar instructions were given for managing difficult patients, restrict their ability to act for themselves to foster a state of dependency and compliance. Whether Mitchell drew from these practices or developed them independently is a matter of academic debate. The core question remains, was he consciously trying to break his patient's spirit? Or did he truly believe this was a necessary part of the healing process? The line between therapeutic control and psychological abuse becomes terrifyingly thin. You stare at your hands. They look alien to you, pale and still against the white sheet. You try to remember what it felt like to grip a pen, the slight pressure of the nib on paper. You remember the satisfaction of turning a page, the weight of a book in your lap. These memories feel like they belong to someone else, a distant, more capable version of you. You try a small experiment. When Nurse Mills is out of the room for a moment, you slowly, deliberately, lift your right hand. You flex your fingers, one by one. The movement feels foreign, illicit. You touch your thumb to your forefinger, a simple pinch of grass. It is an act of breathtaking rebellion. For a few seconds, you are in control of your own body. The thrill is so intense it's almost painful. Then you hear her footsteps in the hall, and your hand drops back to the sheet, becoming once again a limp, useless object. The cure is working, not by healing your nerves, but by teaching your body a new language, the language of passivity. It is rewriting your muscle memory. The impulse to act is being slowly, systematically extinguished. You are learning, on a cellular level, what it means to be an object, to be acted upon, but never to act. Your hands, which once dreamed of shaping the world, are being taught the simple, terrible lesson of stillness. The desire to write becomes a physical craving. An itch in the palm of your hand, a restlessness in your fingertips. It is a rebellion that starts not in the mind, but in the muscles, lying still, day after day. You feel your thoughts becoming a chaotic, internal storm. Without the anchor of a pen and paper to give them shape, they threaten to tear you apart. You must write, not for art, not for posterity, but for your own sanity, to prove to the white ceiling and the silent walls that a thinking person still resides here. The opportunity comes during the midday meal. Nurse Mills, for the first time, is called away downstairs to attend to some minor domestic crisis. She is gone for longer than a few minutes. The silence in the room is different now. It's not just an absence of sound, but an invitation. It's a vacuum of authority. Your heart begins to hammer against your ribs. This is it. Moving is a monumental effort. After days of enforced stillness, your muscles feel weak and unreliable, like strings that have gone slack. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, and a wave of dizziness washes over you. The floor feels shockingly cold against the soles of your feet. Every movement is a struggle, a fight against the atrophy that has already begun to set in. You stand, unsteady, clinging to the bedpost for support. The room tilts for a moment, then settles. Your target is the wardrobe. Inside are the clothes you arrived in, a tangible link to the person you were. You shuffle across the few feet of floorboards, each step a creaking announcement of your transgression. You pull the heavy door open, and the faint scent of lavender and your own familiar perfume washes over you. It's the scent of freedom, and it's so poignant it almost brings you to your knees. Your hands, clumsy and trembling, fumble in the pockets of your traveling skirt, and then you feel it. Small, furred, and cylindrical, a broken stub of a pencil. No longer than your thumb. That must have been forgotten in the scene. It is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. You close your fist around it, the sharp edges of the wood digging into your palm. It's real. It's a tool. But what to write on? You can't deface the walls or furniture. It would be discovered immediately. You search the pockets again, and your fingers close around a small, stiff rectangle of pasteboard. A calling card, one you must have forgotten to leave at some visit weeks ago. On the front, in elegant copper-paled script, is your own name. You scramble back to the bed, the pencil stub clutched in your hand like a holy relic. You lie down, pulling the sheet up to your chin, your heart pounding with the thrill of your crime. You turn the calling card over to its blank back. The pencil feels awkward in your weakened grip. What do you write? How can you possibly capture the vastness of this experience? You don't write a poem or a plea. You write the only words that matter. I am here. My mind is my own. The scratching of the graphite on the card sounds as loud as a gunshot in the silent room. You write about the white walls, the taste of the milk, the weight of the silence. The words are jagged. The sentence is fragmented. It's not elegant, but it's a damn breaking. This is what women like you did. Their diaries, which historians now study, were often more than just emotional outlets. A woman's diary from this era might contain not just her feelings, but also household accounts, lists of books read, and records of social obligations. It was a tool for bringing order to her small, circumscribed world. Historians still debate the function of these documents. Were they tools of personal liberation, a secret garden for a woman's true thoughts, or were they just another form of domestic labor, a way of meticulously managing the details of her own cage? You are so absorbed in your act of defiance that you don't hear the soft tread of rubber-soled shoes in the hallway. The door opens. Nurse Mills stands there, her expression unchanged. She takes in the scene in an instant, your flushed face, the pencil stub in your hand, the calling card on the sheet. There is no anger in her eyes. There is no surprise. There is only a quiet, cynical observation. She walks to the bed and silently extends her hand. There is no point in hiding it. Your rebellion has lasted less than 5 minutes. Defeated, you place the pencil and the card in her palm. She doesn't read what you've written. It is irrelevant to her. She turns and walks to the small desk where she keeps her ledger. You watch as she dips her pen in ink and makes a new entry. You can guess the words she is writing. Patient exhibiting signs of nervous agitation and paranoia. Engaged and secretive. Forbidden activity. Cure must be strictly enforced. She has not punished you. She has done something far worse. She has taken your desperate act of self-preservation and filed it away as a symptom. She has medicalized your rebellion. You turn your face back to the white ceiling. The tiny flame of defiance you had managed to kindle has been snuffed out. Not with a boot, but with a cool, calm stroke of a pen. The failed rebellion marks a turning point. It's not a single, dramatic moment of surrender, but a slow, creeping tide of resignation. The energy it took to stand, to find the pencil, to write those few forbidden words that has left you utterly depleted. The brief flicker of hope has been extinguished, and in its place is a cold, heavy exhaustion. Now when Nurse Mills brings the tray with its greasy mutton and its glass of milk, you no longer see it as an instrument of oppression. You see it simply as food. The fight has gone out of you. You open your mouth for the spoon with a listless, mechanical obedience. You chew, you swallow, you drink the milk, the sour cow you miss, the beef tea. It's easier to comply than to resist. Resistance requires energy, and you have none left. And the diet begins to work its slow, insidious magic. Your body, which at first fought against the relentless influx of calories, begins to yield. You feel it in small ways at first. The nightgown, once loose and shapeless, now clings to you. The sharp angles of your collarbones and hips are beginning to soften, blurring into gentle curves. When the nurse helps you turn on your side, your body feels heavier, more substantial. This physical transformation has a profound psychological effect. The added weight acts like an anchor, mooring you more firmly to the bed. It makes the idea of standing up, of repeating your brief mutiny, seem not just forbidden, but physically daunting. Your body is becoming a co-conspirator in your own confinement. It is learning the lesson of passivity, a lesson written in layers of fat. This was precisely Drive Mitchell's intention. He wrote about the restless, energetic, nervous invalid who, after a few weeks of the cure, becomes placid and calm. He attributed this change directly to the physical transformation. In his view, the added flesh acted as a cushion for the nerves, insulating them from agitation. He was essentially treating a psychological condition with upholstery. It's a buzzer concept, but it was part of a wider Victorian medical fascination with the body as a machine. If a machine was running too fast, too hot, you didn't reason with it, you changed its mechanics. You added lubrication. You increased its mass to make it run more slowly. This is how Mitchell viewed you. Your mind was racing. Your nerves were afraid. His solution was to change your physical machinery, to make your body heavier and therefore, he believed, slower and more docile. A fascinating, and rather sad, bit of trivia is how this fattening cure was marketed. In an age of burgeoning advertising, health tonics and elixirs promising weight gain were common. They were often named at women, with advertisements featuring frail, thin figures transforming into robust, rosy-cheeked matrons. Fresh food products promised to cure thinness and nervousness in one go. Dr. Mitchell's rest cure was, in a way, the ultimate, medicalized version of this trend. It took a popular aesthetic desire, the desire for a pleasingly plump figure, and weaponized it as a therapeutic tool. As the days blur into one another, you begin to feel a strange sense of detachment from your own body. It's as if the you inside, the thinking, feeling core of your being, is shrinking, while the physical shell around it expands. You watch the nurse enter your body, washing it, feeding it, turning it with the disinterest of a landlord watching tenants maintain a property they no longer inhabit. This body, this increasingly heavy and sluggish vessel, doesn't feel like yours anymore. It belongs to the cure. Historians often debate the long-term psychological impact of this process. Did women who underwent the cure emerge healed, as Mitchell claimed, or did they emerge with a profoundly fractured sense of self? Their minds and bodies permanently disconnected. The anecdotal evidence from letters and diaries suggests the latter. Many women were feeling like strangers in their own skin for years afterward. The cure didn't heal the disconnect between mind and body, it institutionalized it. One afternoon, as no smells is helping you change your position, you catch a glimpse of your own arm. It looks different. It's fuller, rounder. The skin stretched smooth and tight over a new layer of flesh. The sight is deeply unsettling. It's the first tangible, undeniable proof that the cure is winning. You are not just being confined, you are being remade. Molecule by molecule. The woman who walked into this room is slowly being erased, replaced by a softer, heavier, more placid version. A version Dr. Mitchell would approve of. A version you no longer recognize. As your body becomes more placid, your mind, starved of external stimuli, begins to turn inward in strange and unpredictable ways. The world of the white room, once a void, becomes your entire universe, and your brain starts to project meaning onto its blank surfaces. This is the new frontier of your existence, the geography of boredom. The cracks in the ceiling are no longer just cracks. They have become a familiar map. There's a long, jagged line that you've named the Mississippi River. A cluster of smaller fissures near the corner is the constellation Cassiopeia. You spend hours tracing these imaginary landscapes with your eyes, your only form of travel. It's a desperate attempt by your intellect to find order and narrative in a world devoid of both. The wallpaper, a pale, creamy color with a faint, repeating pattern you hadn't noticed before, becomes an object of intense scrutiny. The pattern is a sort of looping, floral design, but if you stare at it long enough, it begins to shift and squirm. You start to see things hiding in the design, distorted faces, grasping hands, silent, screaming mouths. At first, it's a game, a way to pass the endless hours, but the images become more persistent, more menacing. The wallpaper seems to be watching you. It has a life of its own, a secret, sinister narrative that unfolds just at the edge of your vision. This phenomenon, where the brain starts to create its own reality in the absence of sensory input, is now a well-understood psychological state. It's often seen in cases of solitary confinement or sensory deprivation experiments. It's a survival mechanism. The mind, needing input, begins to generate its own. For you, it's terrifying. You don't have the language or the scientific framework to understand what's happening. You fear you are genuinely losing your mind. The cure designed to save you from madness seems to be actively inducing it. Your thoughts, unmoored from the discipline of reading and writing, begin to drift in a strange, soupy fog. You can't seem to hold on to a single, coherent idea for more than a few moments. Your mind flits from a vivid memory of your childhood cat, to the chemical formula for salt, to the imagined face of a man in the moon. There is no logic, no connection. It's like a library where all the books have been thrown on the floor, their pages ripped out and scattered by the wind. This mental fragmentation is a subject of ongoing discussion among historians of psychiatry. Was this what Dr. Mitchell meant by putting the brain to rest? Did he interpret this chaotic, dreamlike state as a positive sign that the overactive intellect was shutting down, or was it an unintended consequence of a treatment that was far more psychologically brutal than he understood? Some scholars argue that by breaking down a woman's linear, masculine thought processes, the cure was forcing her into a more feminine, intuitive, and less threatening state of mind. It was a cognitive restructuring, a forced demolition of the rational self. You begin to develop a strange relationship with Nurse Mills. She's your entire world, the only other human presence. You start to read meaning into her smallest actions. The way she sets down a glass of milk, is it gentler today? Does that mean she's pleased with your progress? The sound of her breathing in the chair as she watches you, is it steady and calm? Or is there a hint of impatience in it? She has become the sun around which your tiny, pathetic planet revolves. Her approval, her disapproval, These are the new moral poles of your existence. You find yourself wanting to please her, to be a good patient. The desire is insidious and shameful. But it's there. You are a prisoner who has begun to identify with her God. One of the more peculiar historical tidbits about the rest cure is that Mitchell sometimes prescribed infant food for his adult patients. Things like malted gruel and barley water. The symbolism is hard to miss. The treatment was a forced regression, an attempt to return the patient to a state of infantile dependency. Your current mental state feels exactly like that of pre-rational, dreamlike existence where the world is a series of immediate, disconnected sensations, the texture of the sheet, the taste of the milk, the looming presence of the nurse. One evening, as the light fades from the room, you are staring at the wallpaper. In the looping pattern, you see a woman. She is trapped behind the design, her hands pressed against it, as if it were a pane of glass. She is pale and still, but her eyes are wide with a silent, desperate plea. You know, with a sudden, chilling certainty, that the woman is you. You close your eyes, but you can still see her. She is there, trapped in the walls, a prisoner of the pattern. Just as you are a prisoner of the bed, the lines between reality and hallucination, between the room and your mind, are beginning to dissolve completely. Weeks have passed. You don't know how many. Time is measured not in days, but in pounds. The milestone arrives on a Tuesday, or what you think is a Tuesday. Nurse Mills has brought in a large, clinical-looking scale. The process of getting you onto it is a clumsy, undignified affair. It takes all of her strength to help you out of the bed and support you for the few seconds it takes to register your weight. Your legs feel like jelly, weak and unfamiliar. The floor is a distant, unstable surface. When you are settled back in bed, breathing heavily from the exertion, Nurse Mills makes a note in her ledger and gives a small, satisfied nod. The gesture is as loud as a fanfare. Later that day, you have a visitor. Dr. Eyes. Weir Mitchell stands in the doorway, and he is smiling. It's a broad, benevolent smile of a craftsman pleased with his work. He looks different from how you remember him in his office. There, he was a diagnostician, a scientist identifying a problem. Here, he is a victor. Well, now, he says, his voice booming with a cheerfulness that feels alien in the quiet room. This is what I like to see. The roses are returning to your cheeks. He walks over to the bed. Nurse Mills stands respectfully in the corner, a loyal soldier presenting her successful campaign to the general. The doctor picks up your chart and reads it, his smile widening. Excellent progress, he murmurs. Excellent. Then he does something that makes your skin crawl. He reaches out and, with a clinical yet proprietary air, gently pinches the flesh of your upper arm. He's assessing the quality of the upholstery he has so carefully installed. Good, he says, nodding to himself. Sam, healthy. We have built up a good reserve of fat and blood here. The nerves will have no choice but to be calm now. He is talking about your body as if it were a project, a piece of livestock he is fattening for market. The you inside, the conscious, thinking person, is not addressed. He speaks to Nurse Mills, praising her diligent application of his methods. He speaks about you, but not to you. You are the object of their shared success, the proof of his theory. His satisfaction is the most alienating thing you have ever experienced. He genuinely believes he has helped you. He sees your physical transformation not as a violation, but as a triumph of medical science. He sees your placid, exhausted state not as a sign of psychological collapse, but as the serene calm he set out to achieve. Your quiet compliance is, to him, the very picture of mental health. This dynamic, where the patient's own experience is completely invalidated by the doctor's interpretation, is at the heart of the critique of the rest cure. The definition of success was determined entirely by the doctor, and it was measured by two simple metrics: weight gain and docility. If a woman gained 50 pounds and stopped talking about wanting to go to university, she was cured, whether she felt happy, fulfilled, or even sane was entirely irrelevant to the diagnosis of success. It's a chilling historical detail that Mitchell often published before and after photographs of his patients. The before picture would show a thin, intense-looking woman. The after picture, taken months later, would show a much heavier, often blank-faced version of the same person. For Mitchell and his contemporaries, these images were compelling evidence of the cure's effectiveness. To a modern eye, they look like a record of a spirit being systematically broken. The doctor asks you a few questions, but they are not really questions. They are tests of your new, improved state. You are feeling calmer now. Are you not? He asks, phrasing it in a way that allows for only one correct answer. You hesitate for a fraction of a second, a tiny, vestigial spark of the old you wants to scream. It wants to tell him about the woman in the wallpaper, about the terrifying emptiness of your own mind. But you are too tired. The fight is over, and you have learned the rules of this game. The right answer is the one that gets you out of here. Yes, doctor, you hear a voice say. It sounds distant, disconnected. You realize with a jolt that it's your own. I am much calmer. His smile is blinding. Of course you are, he says, patting your hand. We have made you well. The debate among historians continues to what degree was the cure a placebo, amplified by the immense authority of a figure like Mitchell. Did patients become better simply because they were told, repeatedly and with absolute conviction, that they would, or was it something more coercive? Were women simply learning to perform the role of the cured patient in order to escape their confinement as drive? Mitchell beams down at you. You know the answer for yourself. You are not cured. You are just a better actor. Part of the cure involves a slow, carefully controlled reintroduction to the outside world, lest your newly placid nerves be jarred. This reintroduction comes in the form of letters and news, but they are not delivered to you directly. They are filtered through the ever-present nurse Mills, who acts as your censor and interpreter. She will sit in the hardback chair by your bed and read to you for the prescribed 15 minutes a day. The content is always light, vetted for its lack of stimulating ideas. She reads from a ladies' magazine, describing the latest fashions, from Paris gowns with bustles and elaborate silk draperies that seem to belong to a species of creature you no longer recognize. She reads a sentimental poem about a robin in the snow. She reads aloud a letter from your mother. The letter is a masterpiece of edited reality. Your mother's original words, with all their potential for emotional complexity. Her anxieties, her hopes, her guilt have been strained out. What's left is a thin, bland broth. Dearest daughter, the nurse reads in her monotone voice. We were so thrilled to receive Drive Mitchell's report on your splendid progress. Your father and I are counting the days until you are fully recovered and can return to us. The Abernathy's send their regards. We are all praying for your continued improvement. The words float in the sterile air of the room, stripped of all true meaning. Splendid progress. Fully recovered. They are talking about a different person. The one Dr. Mitchell is constructing. The news from home sounds like a story from a distant land. A place you once knew but can no longer access. The mention of the Abernathy's, which once would have sent a jolt of panic and rage through you, now lands with a dull, distant thud. That battle was fought by a different woman, in a different lifetime. This careful filtering of information was a key part of Mitchell's method. He called it moral therapeutics. He believed that by controlling the patient's entire sensory and intellectual diet, he could shape their thoughts and emotions. He was creating a feedback loop of placidity. You were kept in a calm environment, fed calming information, and therefore, you would become calm. It was a simple, mechanical view of the human psyche. This practice of censorship raises a fascinating question for historians. How much reality did these women lose when they finally emerged from the cure? Weeks or months later, they would have been completely disconnected from the current of their own family's life and the events of the wider world. The world would have moved on without them. The cure didn't just pause their lives, it created a rupture, a period of lost time that could never be fully recovered. It's a form of induced amnesia. One day, The nurse reads you a small, approved snippet from the newspaper. It's about the dedication of a new public park. There is no mention of politics, of social unrest, of the intellectual debates that used to fire your imagination. The world, as presented to you, is a series of pleasant, non-controversial events. It is a world scrubbed clean of all passion and conflict, a world as sterile and white as your room. You lie in bed and listen, your face a mask of polite interest. But inside, a strange thing is happening. The filtered words are beginning to sound more real than your own chaotic, internal world, a simple, uncomplicated narrative presented by the nurse of a world where ladies wear beautiful gowns and parks are dedicated and everyone is getting better is comforting. It's easier to believe in than the screaming woman trapped in your wallpaper. Your own mind has become a frightening, unreliable place. The censored reality, false as you know it to be, offers a strange kind of refuge. You are beginning to prefer the lie. A particularly strange detail from some case histories of the rest cure involves the doctor himself reading to the patients. Mitchell, the novelist, would sometimes read passages from his own might, historical romances to the women whose own creative impulses he was systematically crushing. The irony is staggering. He was replacing their authentic inner voice with his own literary one, literally programming them with his own unthreatening narratives. You are losing the thread of your own story, the woman who loved books on social reform, who argued with her father, who dreamed of a life of the mind she is fading. She feels like a character in a book you once read, but can no longer quite remember. The protagonist of your life is being slowly written out of the plot. In her place is a new character, a quiet, hurry, docile young woman who listens politely to poems about robins and waits for her next glass of milk. The world outside is fading to a distant murmur, a story told in a monotone voice, and you are no longer sure you are one of its characters. Your relationship with Nurse Mills has evolved from one of simple patient and caregiver to something far more complex and psychologically tangled. She is no longer just a guard, she is your reality. She is the source of food, the bringer of filtered news, the arbiter of all rules. Her presence is the one constant in your timeless, eventless world. You have come to know the subtle landscape of her moods. You know the sound of her footsteps, the rustle of her starched apron, the slight sigh she gives when she sits down in her chair for the evening walk. You have learned to read the minute shifts in her expression. A slightly tighter set of her jaw means you have been slow to finish your milk. A brief, almost imperceptible softening of her eyes means your weight has increased satisfactorily. Your entire world has shrunk to the study of this one. In a hotel, she is a perfect instrument of Dr. Mitchell's will. He had very specific ideas about the ideal nurse for the rest cure. She had to be a stranger to the patient. To prevent any unhealthy emotional attachment, she had to be firm, disciplined, and absolutely loyal to the doctor's instructions, never giving in to the patient's pleas or complaints. She was trained to see expressions of despair, anger, or frustration not as legitimate human emotions, but as clinical symptoms to be managed and recorded. Your nurse embodies this perfectly. She is a wall of professional neutrality. But, in the long, silent hours, you can't help but wonder about her. Does she have a family? Does she have dreams? Does she read books for pleasure when she goes home at night? Or is her mind as starched and orderly as her uniform? You try to imagine her in a different context, wearing a colored dress, laughing with a friend. The image refuses to form. She exists for you only within the white walls of this room. This intense, dependent relationship is a subject of much debate among historians. Was the nurse a figure of healing, or a to love coercion? The answer is likely both. On one hand, she provided the constant physical care that was central to the treatment. On the other, she was the primary enforcer of a psychologically brutal regimen. She was both caretaker and jailer, a duality that created a powerful and confusing bond with the patient. You find yourself developing a strange, almost desperate desire for her approval. When she praises you in her flat tone, you took your broth well today. A small, shameful thrill runs through you. You have become the model prisoner, The compliant child. You have learned that docility is rewarded with a smoother, more frictionless existence. Arguing, resisting, even hesitating, these things create friction. They invite a tighter grip of control. Compliance is the path of least resistance, and you are too tired to walk any other path. There's a curious, little-known aspect of these rest cure nurses. Many of them were women who, in another context, might have been candidates for the cure themselves. They were often intelligent, unmarried women seeking a respectable profession in a world with few options. Nursing, especially under a famous physician like Mitchell, offered a degree of autonomy and purpose. It's a profound irony to achieve her own limited form of professional freedom. A nurse's job was to enforce a system designed to crush the ambitions of other women. One night, you wake up from a nightmare. You don't remember what it was about, only that it left you with a feeling of overwhelming terror. You let out a small cry. Nurse Mills is at your side instantly. She doesn't comfort you. She doesn't ask what was wrong. She simply takes your pulse, her fingers cool and firm on your wrist. She makes a note in her ever-present ledger. Then she says, "Lie still." Your heart is racing. You must remain calm. Her response is a perfect distillation of the cure's philosophy. Your terror is not an emotional state to be understood or soothed. It is a physiological event to be controlled. She is treating the symptom, a racing heart, not the cause, the psychological torment of your situation. In that moment, you see her not as a person, but as a mechanism, a part of the machinery of the cure. And you realize, with a chilling clarity, that the cure's ultimate goal is to turn you into a mechanism, as well a body that can be regulated, managed, and kept running smoothly, with all the messy, unpredictable parts of the human spirit safely shut down. You are a machine being repaired by another machine, and the personal, human element has been erased entirely. The transformation is no longer subtle. It is a stark, unavoidable fact. Your body, once a familiar vessel, has become a foreign country, and you are its unwilling, exiled citizen. You are trapped inside a new architecture of flesh, one designed by Drive, Mitchell and built by Nurse Mills, one spoonful at a time. The most visceral evidence comes from your clothes. As a test of your progress, Nurse Mills is instructed to have you try on the dress you arrived in. The simple act of sitting up on the edge of the bed is a dizzying, monumental effort. Your body feels lean, your balance precarious. When the nurse holds up the familiar wool dress, it looks impossibly small, like a costume for a child. The struggle to put it on is a quiet, profound humiliation. You suck in your breath, but it's no use. The buttons on the bodice strain, pulling the fabric taut across your newly full chest. The seams around the arms are painfully tight. The waist, once snipped in by a corset, refuses to close. It's not just a matter of a few pounds. Your entire shape has been altered, your frame padded and drowned into a form you do not recognize. You look down at yourself, at the straining fabric and the unfamiliar curves. This is the body prison made manifest. It's a physical cage, built around you, that perfectly mirrors the psychological one you inhabit. The added weight is not just fat, it's a physical representation of your lost agency. It's the weight of the milk, the weight of the boredom, the weight of the silence. It is the physical accumulation of your surrender. Dr. Mitchell's theory of the moral effect of fatness was not just about calming the nerves. It was about creating a body that was physically unsuited for the life of the new woman he so distrusted. A heavier, more rounded body was, in the Victorian mindset, a more maternal, more domestic body. It was a body less suited for riding bicycles, for striding into a lecture hall, or for the rigors of a professional life. By changing your body, he was trying to change your destiny, rerouting you back to the domestic sphere you had tried to escape. There's an ongoing academic conversation about the link between this prescribed weight gain and the era's burgeoning consumer culture. Some historians argue that the rest cure inadvertently created a model for how a woman's body could be managed and improved through consumption. just as you could buy a new dress to change your appearance. You could undergo a cure to change your very shape and, by extension, your personality. It was an early, medicalized version of the makeover, where the woman's body was treated as a project to be worked on, a flawed object to be perfected according to external standards. You see your reflection for a fleeting moment in the dark glass of the window. The woman looking back at you is a stranger. Her face is fuller, her cheeks rosy as drive. Mitchell promised. The sharp, inquisitive look you once had in your eyes has been replaced by a kind of placid dullness. It is the face of a cured woman. It is the face of someone who has learned not to fight. The despair you feel is a quiet, heavy thing, as leaden as your new limbs. It's not a sharp, fiery anger anymore. That requires too much energy. This is a slow, cold grief for the person you have lost. You were once a greyhound, lean and swift and full of restless energy. Now you feel like a lapdog, deliberately overfed, bred for softness and stillness, your only purpose to be placid and pleasing. Nurse Mills helps you out of the too tight dress and back into the loose cotton nightgown. The shapeless garment feels like a relief, hiding the evidence of your transformation. But you cannot hide from the feeling of it. You are weighted down, trapped not just in the room, but within your own skin. The prison is no longer just the white walls around you. You have become the prison. Every step you might dream of taking, every act of rebellion you might contemplate, must now be undertaken by this new, heavy, unwilling body. The cure has been a stunning success. It has built the walls of your cage out of your own flesh. As your body reaches the desired state of plumpness, a new element is introduced to the regimen. Dr. Mitchell was a great believer in the therapeutic power of touch as long as it was administered by a professional and stripped of all personal affection. The next phase of your healing is daily massage. The masseuse is a strong, silent woman with powerful hands. She arrives every afternoon, her presence another disruption in the monotonous landscape of your day. Nurse Mills remains in the room, a silent chaperone, observing the procedure to ensure is carried out according to the doctor's exact specifications. The experience is profoundly strange and disembodying. You are instructed to lie passively as the masseuse works on your limbs. Her touch is not gentle or soothing. It is vigorous, methodical, and completely impersonal. She needs the muscles of your legs and arms, which have grown soft and weak from disuse. The goal, as Mitchell wrote, was to provide the exercise of another's will, to stimulate the muscles without the patient having to expend any nerve force of their own. You lie there, a slab of flesh being manipulated, and your mind retreats even further. It's another layer of the cure's central theme: you are not an actor, you are a recipient. Your body is a passive object to be fed, turned, and now to be kneaded like dough. The massage is meant to counteract the negative effects of the prolonged bed rest, preventing total muscle atrophy and improving circulation. But psychologically, it reinforces your helplessness. Even the movement of your own muscles is now something that is done to you, not by you. This introduction of a stranger's touch into such a controlled, isolated environment is a topic of much fascination for historians. On one hand, it was based on emerging scientific ideas about physiology and the benefits of passive exercise. Mitchell was, in this sense, ahead of his time. On the other hand, in the deeply private and prudish Victorian era, having one's body handled so intimately by a stranger was a significant and complex event, especially for an upper-class woman. There is a continuing debate about the nature of this physical contact. Was it purely clinical, or did it carry a more subtle, psychological charge for a woman who has been starved of all normal human contact? This daily, methodical touching could become a buzzer substitute for affection, further blurring the lines of dependency and control. It was a form of intimacy completely devoid of emotion, a clinical transaction of touch that reinforced the idea of the body as a machine to be serviced. There's a strange and little-known element to Mitchell's theories on massage. He believed that vigorous muscle stimulation could somehow shake up and redistribute the body's nerve force. breaking up congested areas of nervous energy. It was a physical, almost violent approach to a psychological problem, as if you could physically knead anxiety out of a person's tissues. It's another example of his profoundly mechanical view of the human system. As the masseuse works on your now heavier legs, you stare at the ceiling. The cracks have become old friends. You find yourself disassociating from the sensations. The pressure and movement are happening to a body, but it doesn't quite feel like your body. It belongs to the room, to the cure, to the silent women who are tending to it. You feel a flicker of something, a distant memory of what your body used to feel like. You remember the simple pleasure of walking, the feeling of your muscles working as you climbed a flight of stairs. You remember the sense of power and freedom in your own limbs. That body, the one that could move and act and carry you through the world, seems like a ghost. This new body, the one lying on the bed, is a sluggish, heavy thing. It is a body designed for passivity, for being acted upon. The massage ends. The masseuse leaves as silently as she arrived. Nurse Mills makes a note in her ledger. The brief period of activity is over, and the profound stillness of the room rushes back in to fill the void. The massage, meant to simulate the effect of exercise, has only served to highlight your complete lack of it. It's a phantom limb of a life, a ghostly reminder of the physical autonomy you have lost. You are left feeling more inert and powerless than before. Your own flesh a testament to your confinement. The breaking point, when it comes, is not a dramatic explosion. It is a quiet, internal implosion. There is no trigger, no single event that pushes you over the edge. It is the cumulative weight of the weeks of silence, of the endless milk, of the wallpaper that squirms in the hands that are not your own. It happens in the middle of the afternoon. The room is still. The grey light is filtering through the window. Nurse Mills is sitting in her chair, mending a tear in one of her aprons, her needle moving with a steady, rhythmic dip. You are lying on your back, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly, something inside you snaps. A wave of despair so immense, so profound, washes over you that it feels like a physical force. It is the grief for your lost self, the terror of your empty mind, the suffocating reality of your confinement, all coalescing into a single, unbearable moment. You don't scream, you don't thrash or fight. The energy for that has long been drained away. Instead, tears begin to stream silently from the corners of your eyes. They run down your temples and into your hair. You don't sob, your body remains perfectly still. It is a purely liquid expression of a pain too deep for sound. You are overflowing. The carefully constructed dam of docility has broken, and the reservoir of your misery is spilling out. You are crying for the woman who loved books. You are crying for the lost pencil stub. You are crying for the person in the mirror you no longer recognize. You are crying because you have become such a good patient, and you hate yourself for it. Nurse Mills, ever vigilant, notices the glint of moisture on your cheeks. She puts down her sewing and comes to stand by the bed. She looks down at you, her face a neutral mask of professional concern. She does not ask what is wrong. She does not offer a word of comfort. She does not wipe your tears away. To her, this is not a moment of human suffering. It is a clinical event. She takes your pulse. She makes a note of your respiration. Then she goes to her ledger and opens it to a fresh page. Her pen scratches in the quiet room. You know what she is writing. She is logging the event, translating your profound emotional collapse into the cold, clinical language of the cure. This is the ultimate paradox of the rest cure. A treatment for hysteria, a condition characterized by emotional volatility that pathologizes the very act of emotion. In Dr. Mitchell's framework, this breakdown would not be seen as a failure of the cure, but as a crucial, positive development. He wrote of a point in the treatment where the patient might experience a crisis of weeping or despair. He interpreted this not as a sign of distress, but as the moral storm before the calm, the moment when the patient's rebellious will finally breaks, leaving them open and receptive to the final stages of healing. It was, in his view, a necessary surrender. Historians are still untangling the psychological implications of this. Was this crisis a genuine therapeutic breakthrough, as Mitchell believed, or was it, as many modern critics argue, simply the predictable result of prolonged sensory deprivation, isolation, and psychological manipulation? The evidence strongly suggests the latter. You are not being cleansed, you are being broken. Your silent weeping is not a sign of healing, it is a symptom of trauma. There is a strange, sad piece of trivia associated with this phenomenon. Mitchell's male patients, the ones sent on the West cure for their nervousness, were encouraged to express their frustrations and anger through vigorous physical activity. Their moral storms were to be channeled into chopping wood or hunting buffalo. Your moral storm is expected to happen in a bed, silently, to be observed and recorded like a change in the weather. Your despair is a passive event. As you lie there, the tears continuing their silent journey into your hairline, you feel a profound sense of emptiness. The storm is past, and it has taken everything with it. There is nothing left to fight with. There is no one left to be. The woman in the wallpaper is gone. The greyhound is gone. All that remains is this heavy, tear-stained body in a white room. Nurse Mills looks at you. Then at her ledger, she gives a small, almost imperceptible nod, the same one she gave when the scale showed the correct weight. From her perspective, the treatment has just reached a critical and successful milestone. The final vestiges of your resistance have been washed away. The weeks that follow your silent breakdown are a blur of placid emptiness. You have entered the final phase of the cure, the one drive Mitchell would have called recovery. You would call it erasure. You eat what you are given. You sleep when it is dark, and you lie still through the long, white hours in between. You have become the perfect patient. The machine is running smoothly. The day of your release arrives without fanfare. It is announced by Drive Mitchell himself during a brief, final visit. He stands at the foot of your bed, his arms crossed, beaming like a proud father at a graduation. "Well, my dear," he proclaims, "I believe we have done it. We have vanquished the hysteria." He picks up your chart and reads your final weight aloud, the number sounding foreign and impossibly large. He recites Nurse Mills's final notes on your behavior. Patient is calm, compliant, and emotionally stable. Appetite is excellent. Sleeps soundly. He looks at you, expecting a smile. You give him a small, faint one. It feels like a mask you are holding up with the last of your strength. He declares you cured. The word hangs in the air, a monument to his supreme confidence. But what does it mean in the context of the rest cure? Cure did not mean you were happy, or fulfilled, or that the root causes of your initial distress had been addressed. It meant that your symptoms, the symptoms of nonconformity, had been eliminated. You no longer talked of wanting to go to university. You no longer expressed passionate opinions. You were quiet. You were docile. You had gained 60 pounds. By every metric of the cure, you were a resounding success. He gives you a final set of instructions, a sort of user's manual for your newly repaired self. You are to live as domestic a life as possible. You are to have an hour of intellectual stimulation a day, but no more. And you are to never touch a pen, brush, or pencil as long as you live. This last command is delivered with the gravity of a sacred vow. Your creativity, your intellect, they are not just to be rested, but to be permanently decommissioned. This final prescription is perhaps the most damning piece of evidence for historians who view the rest cure as a tool of social control. The debate over Mitchell's intentions, was he a healer or a jailer, often circles back to this point. If his goal was truly to restore a woman's health, why would he permanently forbid her from the very activities that might bring her joy and a sense of purpose? The conclusion many scholars reach is that the health he was interested in was the health of the social order. A healthy woman was one who fit neatly into her prescribed domestic role. The cure wasn't about making you feel better, it was about making you fit better. There's a fascinating and tragic piece of data that supports this. A surprising number of women who were cured by Mitchell had relapses or went on to suffer from lifelong depression. The cure was often a temporary fix, a suppression of the self that could not be maintained indefinitely. Some women even underwent the rest cure multiple times. A cycle of being broken and repaired that speaks to the profound ineffectiveness of the treatment to address the real underlying issues. Your parents are summoned. They enter the room, their faces etched with a mixture of apprehension and hope. They see you, sitting up in bed, looking rosy-cheeked and placid. They see the physical transformation, and to them, it is the very picture of health. Your mother weeps with relief, clutching your hand. "Oh, my darling," she whispers. "You look so well. Dr. Mitchell is a miracle worker." Your father shakes the doctor's hand with deep, heartfelt gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you, Doctor. You have given us our daughter back." You look at their happy, relieved faces, and you feel nothing but vast, hollow emptiness. They have not gotten their daughter back. They have gotten a stranger back, a heavier, quieter, sadder version. The real you is buried somewhere deep inside this new body, under layers of flattened silence and resignation. You want to scream. Can't you see I'm not here? But you have forgotten how to scream. You just smile your faint, pleasant smile. You play your part. You are the cured woman. And as you prepare to leave the white room, you know that you are simply trading one prison for another, larger one. The only difference is that now, you will carry the bars of the cage inside you. The moment the front door of the nursing home opens, the world rushes at you in a chaotic, overwhelming wave. It's an assault on senses that have been systematically starved for months. The sunlight is not the gentle, diffuse grey of your room, it is a brilliant, blinding blade that makes you flinch and raise a hand to your eyes. It feels aggressive, intrusive. The sounds are a cacophony. The clip-clop of a horse on the cobblestones is not a distant, rhythmic beat, it's a sharp, percussive cry. The chatter of people walking down the street. The cry of a newsboy. The distant clang of a streetcar bell, they all merge into a roaring, and differentiated wall of noise. Your brain, accustomed to the profound silence of the white room, cannot process the flood of information. It's like trying to take a sip from a fire hose. You feel a wave of dizziness. A vertigo so intense that you have to clutch your father's arm for support. He pats your hand, misinterpreting your sensory overload as simple physical weakness. "Easy now, my dear," he says gently. "You're still delicate." Delicate. The word is a bitter irony. You feel as fragile as a pane of glass. But you are encased in a body that feels heavy and cumbersome. Walking is a strange, rare-learned activity. Your legs, accustomed to the passive kneading of the masseuse, feel clumsy and unreliable beneath you. The ground seems to shift with every step. You are acutely aware of the new weight you carry. The way your body moves with a heavy, unfamiliar sway. You feel conspicuous. Large, a slow-moving ship in a sea of nimble sailboats. This experience of sensory and physical disorientation is a common theme in the accounts of women who underwent the rest cure. Their re-entry into the world was often a traumatic experience. Their nervous systems, having been artificially suppressed, were suddenly thrown into overdrive. The world they returned to was the same, but they were fundamentally different. Their ability to navigate it deeply impaired. The cure, designed to make them fit for society, had in fact made them profoundly unfit for its normal, everyday functioning. As you sit in the carriage on the way to the station, you stare out the window, but you don't truly see the passing faces of strangers. The shop windows, the flurry of activity, it's all a blur, a smear of color and motion without meaning. Your mind, which once would have devoured these details, now registers them with a dull and curious passivity. The world looks flat, like a badly painted backdrop. The connection between you and it has been severed. There is a subtle, often undiscussed aspect of this re-entry that historians of medicine point out: the loss of the sick role. For on it horrors, being a patient in the rest cure provided a strange kind of structure and purpose. Your job was to get better, to follow the rules. Now, in the outside world, that role is gone. You are expected to be well, to resume your place, but you have no idea what the rules are anymore. You are a graduate of a program that has trained you for a life that no longer exists, because the person who was supposed to live it has been erased. Your mother, sitting opposite you in the carriage, chatters happily about redecorating your bedroom, about the upcoming social season, about all the things you will now be well enough to enjoy. She is trying to paint a picture of a happy, normal future, to seamlessly stitch this lost time back into the fabric of your life. She doesn't understand that you can't just pick up where you left off. The person she is talking to is not the person who left home months ago. You look at your hands, resting in the lap of your new, larger dress. They look pale and soft, like the hands of a stranger. You remember Drive, Mitchell's final command: never touch a pen, brush, or pencil as long as you live. It echoes in your mind, a life sentence delivered with a benevolent smile. You are being returned to the world, but the tools you once used to understand it, to shape it, to find your place in it, have been taken from you forever. The first step of your freedom feels more like the first step into a different, more subtle kind of prison. The walls are no longer white and close, but they are there all the same, invisible and everywhere. When you return home, the first thing you want to do is see yourself. Really see yourself, not in the fleeting, distorted glimpse from a dark window pane, but in the large, gilt-framed mirror that hangs in the hallway. You need to confront the evidence, to look the stranger who now inhabits your body in the eye. Your mother, bustling with happy energy, tries to steer you towards the drawing room where tea is waiting, but you resist, your feet feeling planted on the marble floor. Just a moment, you murmur, your voice sounding soft and unfamiliar in the high silencing hall. You turn and face the mirror. The reflection stops your breath. That is you, but it is not you. The woman in the mirror is a stranger wearing your face. Her cheeks are full and rosy, just as the doctor promised. Her neck is thick, her shoulders rounded. The dress she wears, a new one purchased by your mother to accommodate your altered frame, is a fashionable, matronly style that makes you look years older. There is a placid, almost bovine quality to her expression. But it's the eyes that are the most terrifying. Your eyes used to be sharp, alive with curiosity and a restless intelligence. They were the most expressive part of you. The eyes of the woman in the mirror are dull, flat, like pools of stagnant water. The fire has gone out. They hold no spark, no rebellion, no questions. They hold only a deep, bottomless exhaustion. They are the eyes of a survivor, but a survivor who has lost the war. You raise a hand to your face, and the woman in the mirror does the same. Her hand is soft and plump, the fingers slightly puffy. It is not the hand you remember, the one that could grip a pencil with such fierce determination. This is the hand of a docile woman, a hand meant for resting in a lap. This moment of confrontation with one's own altered image is a powerful and recurring motif in the writings of women who experienced the rest cure. The physical transformation was so central to the healing process that the patient's own reflection became a symbol of their cure and their loss of self. They were forced to accept this new, heavier, placid image as their own. There's a complex historical debate around Victorian portrait photography and its relationship to this ideal. The poses were often stiff, the expressions somber, but for women, there was often an emphasis on presenting a serene, domestic ideal. The after photos that Mitchell used to promote his cure fit perfectly into this aesthetic. The cured woman, with her fuller figure and blank expression, looked more like the idealized woman of the era's portraiture. The cure didn't just change the woman, it made her more photographable, more aligned with the visual culture of her time. Your mother comes to stand beside you, placing an arm around your new, broader shoulders. She looks at your shared reflection and smiles, her eyes wet with tears. "Just look at you," she says, her voice thick with pride and relief. "So healthy, so wonderfully, perfectly healthy." She sees her daughter saved from the brink of a strange, nervous illness. She sees the triumph of modern medicine. She sees a young woman who is now, finally, ready to accept a sensible marriage proposal and settle into her proper role in life. She looks at the placid stranger in the mirror and sees her daughter, return to her. You look at the same image, and you see a ghost. The real you is a phantom standing behind the eyes of this stranger, rattling the bars of a cage made of flesh and bone. Your mother's words, meant to be a comfort, are a confirmation of your deepest fear. They love this new person. They approve of her. This quiet, heavy, compliant woman is the daughter they always wanted. You force your lips into a smile. The woman in the mirror smiles back, a faint, sad curve with the mouth. It doesn't reach her eyes. It never will again. You have met the stranger who will be you for the rest of your life. The introduction is complete, and it is a quiet, devastating heartbreak. Returning to the rhythm of home life is like trying to dance to a song you can no longer hear. The house is the same. The furniture is the same. The people are the same. But you are a discordant note in a familiar melody. You move through the rooms, a heavy, silent presence, and you feel the weight of their expectations. They expect you to be grateful, to be happy, to be well. Your family's joy is a suffocating blanket. They treat you with a gentle, solicitous care, as if you are a precious, fragile object that might break. They praise your good appetite at dinner. They comment on the healthy color in your cheeks. They celebrate your quietness as a sign of serenity. Every word of praise is a fresh turn of the screw, tightening the lid on the coffin of your former self. They are celebrating the death of your spirit, calling it a recovery. They do not understand what are you. How could they sent away a difficult, restless, sick daughter, and in her place, they have received a calm, healthy one. From their perspective, Dr. Mitchell is a genius, a miracle worker. The system has worked perfectly. They have no framework to understand that the cure was a form of psychological violence. This disconnect between the patient's experience and the family's perception is one of the most tragic legacies of the rest cure. Letters and diaries from the period are filled with the voices of women trying, unfailing, to explain what had happened to them. They were met with incomprehension error, or worse, with accusations of ingratitude. To question the cure was to question the wisdom of their husbands, their fathers, and the great drive, Mitchell himself. It was easier, and safer, to remain silent. And so, you remain silent. You sit in the parlor, a piece of needlework resting untouched in your lap. The colorful silk threads feel alien in your fingers. You listen to the polite chatter, the talk of weddings and weather, and the words wash over you without making an impression. You have become a perfect ornament, just as the world always wanted you to be. Beautiful, quiet, and inanimate. One afternoon, your father brings a visitor into the drawing room. It is Arthur Abernathy, the suitor you so vehemently rejected months ago. He looks at you with a kind, slightly nervous, admiration. He sees the woman in the mirror, the rosy-cheeked, substantial, placid figure. He sees a woman who looks healthy, stable, and ready for the duties of a wife. He makes polite conversation, and you respond with quiet, simple answers. The firebrand who once longed to debate social reform is gone. The woman who once rejected him with passionate fury has been replaced by this soft, compliant creature. Your family watches the exchange with hopeful, satisfied smiles. The cure has not just restored your health, it has made you marriageable. It has smoothed your rough edges and made you a more suitable commodity on the social market. This is a point that feminist historians often emphasize. The rest cure was not just about enforcing a domestic ideal, it was about preserving the structures of patriarchal inheritance and property. A hysterical daughter who rejected a suitable match was a threat to the orderly transfer of wealth and status. A cured daughter who accepted her role was an asset. The cure, in this light, looks less like a medical procedure and more like a tool of economic and social engineering. After Mr. Abernathy leaves, your father pats you on the shoulder. He's a good man, my dear, he says, his voice full of meaning. A fine man. It is not a question. It is a statement of intent. The path has been cleared. The future that once felt like a suffocating cage now seems like an inevitability. You have been so thoroughly cured that you no longer have the strength of the will to rattle the bars. That night, you lie in your familiar bed, in your familiar room, but it offers no comfort. You feel a profound, aching loneliness. You are surrounded by a loving family, but you have never been more alone. They are in love with a stranger, a woman who looks like you but isn't you. The real you is a silent prisoner, trapped deep inside, unheard and unseen. You are home, but you are not whole. You are complete. But only because the empty spaces have been filled with a silence and a sadness, so vast that there is no room for anything else. There is one last ghost to confront. It lingers not in a mirror, but on a page. One evening, you are alone in the parlor. The house is quiet. On a side table, there is a literary magazine that your father subscribes to. Your fingers, acting of their own accord, a faint echo of an old habit, pick it up. You are not supposed to read anything stimulating, but you are a ghost in your own home, and your movements go largely unnoticed. You flip through the pages, the text blurring before your eyes. You have no real interest in the articles. But then, a title catches your eye. It's a short story. The Yellow Wallpaper. The author's name is Charlotte Perkins Gilman. The name is vaguely familiar. You remember hearing it whispered. A woman who had once been a patient of the Great Drive, Mitchell himself. A woman who had suffered a nervous breakdown. You begin to read. The story is told in the first person, the secret diary of a woman undergoing a rest cure for temporary nervous depression. Your blood runs cold. It is your story. The narrator is confined to a room in a colonial mansion. Her husband, a physician, lovingly controls her every move. She is forbidden from working, from writing, from thinking. She is patronized, infantilized, her own perceptions constantly dismissed. As you read, the words on the page are a series of gut punches, each one landing with the shock of recognition. The narrator's secret journal, her desperate attempt to maintain her sanity through writing it as your pencil stub, your calling card, her growing obsession with the room's hideous yellow wallpaper, her conviction that there is a woman trapped behind the pattern, creeping and shaking the bars. It is your white ceiling, your shifting floral design, your silent, screaming woman in the wall. The story is a perfect, terrifying reflection of your own experience, distilled into its purest, most nightmarish form. The author has taken the quiet, clinical horror of the rest cure and exposed it to the light, revealing the madness at its core. You read of the narrator's slow descent, her gradual identification with the woman behind the wallpaper, until in the final, chilling scene, she is creeping around the room, convinced she has finally escaped from behind the pattern. You finish the story, your hands trembling. The magazine falls into your lap. You are not alone. This is the enduring legacy of the rest cure, its most famous and powerful critique. Charlotte Perkins Gilman did, in fact, undergo a version of Mitchell's treatment. The experience drove her, as she later wrote, so near the borderline of utter mental ruin that I could see over. The story was her act of revenge, her warning to the world. She wrote it to expose the dangers of the treatment and, as she claimed, to save other people from being driven crazy. She even sent a copy to Drive Mitchell himself. It is a matter of historical debate whether he ever read it or changed his methods as a result. The prevailing belief is that he did not. But the story survived. It became a foundational text of feminist literature, a haunting allegory for the confinement of women in a patriarchal society. The yellow wallpaper became a symbol for every invisible barrier, every social convention, every loving command that served to trap a woman's mind and spirit. For you, sitting in the silent parlor. The story is not an allegory. It is a testimony. It is proof that you are not mad, that what you experienced was real. The woman in the story, the woman in the wallpaper, she is you, and you are her. For the first time in months, you feel a flicker of something other than despair. It is a strange, bitter kind of kinship, a connection to a fellow prisoner. You have been silenced, your pen taken away forever, but Charlotte Perkins Gilman has spoken for you. She has taken your silent, personal hell and given it a voice that will echo through the ages. You will live out your days as the quiet, killed woman your family loves. You will be the placid stranger in the mirror, but somewhere, in the pages of a magazine, your story is being told. The woman behind the wallpaper is creeping, and she is free. The knowledge is not a comfort, not exactly. It is a single, defiant spark in the vast, suffocating darkness. And for now, it is enough. And so, the story closes. The house settles into its nightly rhythm. A quiet testament to a life that will go on. Predictable and serene. The real story, the one of the screaming woman behind the floral pattern, remains a secret, folded away like a forgotten letter. The world sleeps, unaware of the ghosts that haunt the quiet, well-kept rooms of progress. Let the weight of that silence settle around you now. Feel the heaviness of the blankets, the gentle pressure of the pillow beneath your head. The journey is over. You have returned from that distant, gaslit world. The frantic energy of the story can begin to dissolve, leaving only a soft, quiet stillness in its place. Let your own thoughts become like those distant, muffled sounds from the street prison, but not demanding your attention. Just let them pass by. There is nothing to do now, nothing to solve. There is only the slow, easy rhythm of your own breathing, a gentle tide pulling you out into the calm, deep ocean of sleep. The struggles of that other life, that other you, are fading. Here, in the space, there is only peace. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you are drifting now. Just drifting, towards a place of quiet rest. The end of the article. Good night.